Hey everyone, welcome to the Play to Win Heroclix podcast. I'm your host, Jared Buffington. Back with another episode because last week's episode was really about the tournament recap, but I really wanted to talk about the state of the meta going forward. And also, a lot of Heroclix news dropped this week about rule changes and doing away with ATAs. So I wanted to address all of that and give you guys some peace of mind and see kind of what is going on. So first of all, good old Coca-Cola. First of all, what WizKids is doing with the rule change and with about the powers, doing away with ATAs, you need to understand that drastic changes have happened before. Okay? If you played it all back in the day, hypersonic speed used to be the equivalent of godhood in Heroclix. Okay? They used to put it on any figure that had godlike, cosmic-like abilities. It was insane. You used to have your full range from hypersonic speed, so you could move your full speed and then shoot full range. So if you had 11 speed, 8 range, you could move 11 squares and then shoot 8 squares away, giving you essentially a 19 square range. Also, hypersonic used to have built-in flurry. Okay, that if you hit, you could hit again and hit again and hit again. Hypersonic speed used to automatically give you improved movement over hindering terrain, and they dialed that way the heck down. Energy explosion used to be able to be stacked. Like if you were adjacent to 2 targets of energy explosion, then instead of just getting the 2 damage from one splash, you'd get stacked 4 damage from energy explosion. Okay, so the game used to be much more broken than it is now. Okay, and they're making power changes again that, depending on your standpoint, could be more or less drastic than previous changes. All right, so don't go crazy like the game is gonna go all to hell or it's a big change. Okay, because it's going to be all right. And what WizKids is doing, all right, because the power changes are, they're thinking about changing leadership to take tokens off of characters regardless of point value if you say share a keyword. Amazing. Plus, Mastermind is the other one, which makes essentially Mastermind characters are all like Bizarro Green Arrow. Great. Which makes those 2 powers that were almost not as, powers that are in the forefront. Now they're super in the forefront. They're also changing the phases of the game to where there's beginning of game, action phase, end of game. So free actions are done all still considered in the action phase. So you can't outwit, which is a free action, and then poison, which is the beginning of the turn action. So you'd have to you can't sidestep then poison. Those are some of the things because it really affects poison, which it makes it a lot less finessey. It really affects poison a whole lot. It'd be great if they changed poison to be penetrating, because then poison would be all right. But it is what it is. And what they're essentially doing, I even heard some talk, I don't know how real this is, that they might change outwit to be able to do counter powers that your opponent can use. So even powers that aren't on the dials you could possibly outwit, which makes outwit a whole lot better. But I don't like it as much. But again, it's okay. The game will always be broken by smart players. Okay, no matter what the rules are, they will always be glitched. They will always be broken. So, just because they have to be broken in a different way, it doesn't make the game of Heroclix any less exciting. Okay, Um, so I want to point this out of what WizKids is doing. Okay, WizKids is trying to take Heroclix from being this small boys club of either what we lovingly call filthy casuals and competitives, which there is a boys club. Okay, Heroclix is a boys club. It's at the gaming store. It's very complicated. It's really a lot of people play it that either just straight love it, or Magic was too big of a scene and Heroclix is the next best thing, and they play it. There's an upper echelon of a boys club in competitive play, and they all know each other. They're all good friends, and there's outcry happening. And I will say this: the upper echelon of Heroclix players are not complaining about the rules changes, from what I see so far. So that may change coming up here, but that says something. But Heroclix is in growth pains because it's going from the small, like the best game you've never heard of, or you've heard of it, but it's just so complicated you won't even try. You'd rather go play Pokemon or play Yu-Gi-Oh! They're trying to expand it to be a bigger game. And in the end, it's going to get competitive players where they want to go, because if there is more players, if the company grows, there'll be bigger tournaments. If there's bigger tournaments, eventually there can be more of a pro circuit for Heroclix. Okay? Even if WizKids doesn't want to go there, if the game grows, the ROC will grow. The competitive scene will grow. More players willing to pay more, willing to buy in more, willing to travel more. It makes more of an economy generated in Heroclix. And the goal for a tabletop game, in my opinion, because I look at Heroclix like it's a sport. Okay, so I love sports. I love that aspect of Heroclix, that there is kind of a higher level play, or a pro scene, if you would say that. I know it's not pro like you do it as a profession yet. But I like that there's a competitive network of players, that it's like a sport, okay? And what they're trying to do is grow the game, because the goal is to be like Magic the Gathering, in the sense that you can have a pro circuit, okay? Because if you win, a national championship or a world championship for Magic, that's going to pay the bills for a year, depending on what your financial situation. But 40 grand, 50 grand, that's a good check. At that point, you could start playing Magic semi-professionally, or professionally. So if Heroclix could ever get to that point, to where, say you made $1,000 per tournament as a winner, that would just be amazing, because then you could devote time to it, you could justify it to the wife, all kinds of stuff. It could reimburse you for what you've been investing. And there's a way to do it, because Magic's done it. There's a way to do it where the company makes money, the players enjoy it, and it grows. So I think WizKids' endgame is growth for the game, and growth for the game means a better overall experience for the competitive player. Whether WizKids intentionally makes it better for us, or The Rock takes advantage and The Rock makes it better for us, it will get better. Okay? So, trust in the supreme beings, the game masters, that they will lead us to victory. If you've seen the anime Overlord, maybe you got my reference, but it's gonna be all right. Okay, they're taking out ATAs because that's another facet of the game that confuses the crap out of new players. Okay, so a new player comes to step into the competitive arena. They don't just need to know the rules. They don't just need to know the powers. They need to know ATAs. They need to know entities. They need to know resources. They need to know all these powers. There's all these little loopholes of powers, of sidestep, poison, outwit, all these things are going on. So what they're trying to do is remove a lot of the fat from the game, as much that they can, with still keeping the game intact in order to draw in a new player base. Okay? Because if you take away a lot of the resources, if you take away a lot of these broken combos, if you take away the ATAs, you make the game a lot more accessible to new players, and that's what they want. Okay, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent dumb down of the game, and then they'll gear it back up, because there were not always ATAs, to my knowledge. All right, there were not always resources, so maybe they're dialing the game down, and they're going to ramp it back up once there's a bigger play base, because the way the game's going now, it's going to be hard for the game to grow. So hard, because it's the same players going to the same tournaments. For every one or two new players that starts playing, one or two people stop playing. It needs to grow. It needs to have some fresh blood. And I love this game. This game is better than Yu-Gi-Oh! This game is better than Pokemon. That's why I play it. Okay, I played those other games, and this game is a more fun game. And I think that people should know it. And I'm not threatened by more people playing. I'm not threatened with change. I think that WizKids is ultimately, they have the end in mind in this case, which I'm all for questioning the system. And I don't think WizKids has the best interest for the competitive player. But I know regardless of their intent, growth for the game is good, and growth for the game will benefit you and I. Because if you're listening to this, you're not a casual player. You're a competitive player. Yep, so that's my 2 cents on that. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about a little bit of the simplification. And the game really is going to go back to some things of, placement, sequencing, momentum, threat assessment, foresight. Go back to some of those really core principles of the game, because the game got so overpowered that you could just, a combination of figures, completely nullify a lot of those skills. Like I remember, I'm still a fresh player, but I remember coming in and losing games to people. And then when I got Nick Fury, and my local play group did not have Nick Furies. And I remember how I would start to beat these players that had been playing 5-10 years. Okay, people that taught me the game, I began to beat them because it didn't matter about my positioning, because I see through everything with Nick Fury. It doesn't matter about what combo you have, as I can't use your defense power. And it kind of makes you able to circumvent a lack of skill and a lack of experience, which I love, and I always gravitate towards figures that do that, because it bridges the gap for me. And I'm not afraid to admit that playing cheese bridges the gap between someone who's been playing 5 years as opposed to me who's been playing for 1 year. Okay? Not ashamed to do that, not ashamed to use that. But they're kind of weeding out a lot of that. There is still some of that. I mean, Jakeem Thunder is dumb. In power scale, compared to other figures, it's just such a wide gap, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense. So, there is still some of that, but there's not as much as there has been. Okay? That leads me into my next point. They announced rotation. And can you believe it? Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still legal. Another year of Nick Fury. Oh my goodness. Which I'm not upset with, because Nick Fury is my favorite single piece ever. My favorite piece. But I know a lot of people were just wishing that it was going to be gone and that it was going to stay gone. So I'm excited that it's still going to be here. It means I need to go get a Nick Fury again. So rotations, so everything is gone up until Nick Fury. So Trinity Wars, we knew Trinity Wars was going to be gone. We just didn't know if Superman Wonder Woman was going to be the last set or Nick Fury was going to be the last set. So now we know Nick Fury's here. We got to deal with that. Got to just deal with it. It is what it is. So the metagame is not going to change as drastically as we thought. Excuse me. It is going to change, though, because effectively we will have no resources. And one of my buddies, Joe, which if you've been following the podcast, we have Joe's School of Heroclix. He stepped back from the game because they've been taking out resources and taking out a lot of the advanced mechanics, because a lot of people love how deep and intricate Heroclix is. I do. I know a lot of other people do. So people have been stepping away, and it's going to be different when these resources are gone. I know that in Thor, there's going to be a lot of items that are brought in, and the items are going to be very powerful. If you can imagine Thor's hammer, or Tony Stark's armor, any of that stuff, the objects can be pretty silly and get pretty silly pretty quick. It could be a Hawkeye's bow, and it gives you range combat expert and running shot. There could be a plethora of things that could happen. So the game's going to gear up a little bit, but still, that's not as quick, fast, and in a hurry as the resources. But it's still going to be super powered, and it's still going to be pretty complicated in comparison with other games. So let's talk about where the meta is in light of the last tournament I was in and the tournaments that have been happening leading up to that and after that. Okay? The meta right now is a Jakeem Thunder meta. Alright. Also, Krang was able to take some people by surprise and advance past being a gatekeeper, through the help of the Pym tank, and become a major player. Now, I do not think Krang is just going to stay up there, because Krang is not autopilot. Okay? It's a very finesse way, and the PJ Bolin that won and James that won, they are finesse players, very good players, okay? So it's not just, Krang's an auto win. It's not like that at all. You need to know what you're doing. You need to have great threat assessment and timing. And if you don't have those things, you can go in there and think, wow, I have this championship team, and you not even make top 8, okay? So there's that. As far as the KO and the Wiz Kids, Faust is still Faust. If you saw my video of playing him, Faust is just nasty. He's always going to be, as long as he's in the game. He is just nasty. And Jakeem Thunder is really the most powerful single piece, I think, in the game. Other than that, you're basically, if you're playing a team, it's either going to have, bare minimum, it's going to have Bizarro Green Arrow, or Jakeem Thunder, or the Pym tank, or a combination of all three. If you're really, really going to get to, winning tournaments, those are really the pieces that you need to be worried about. For a little bit, the Can't Die is going to be there, but the Can't Die tech is going to rotate out. Okay? Because Resurrection Man and Dead Man are going to be gone. So I'm not that worried about the Can't Die tech. And the Can't Die tech against a good player with Jakeem is not going to do well, especially on the cargo map, the new cargo ship map, or the Wiz Kids office map, because say Jakeem goes up pulse waves or hits for 5 damage on Haha Joker, you score 10 points, you run for the rest of the game. Okay? The team's not very mobile, and it's very easy to win in the right hands against it. But, I mean, you still need to think about it. You still need to be able to play. You need to be aware of the mechanics. But it's not a major threat. The Shredder team is a new gatekeeper, where you play 3 Shredders in an overdrive. It is a gatekeeper team. It is. I mean, it's going to be a lot like the Doc Ock teams, because they're kind of an autopilot team. A lot of people are going to gravitate to it, number one, because it's cool. It's just cool to have Shredders and be competitive. But also, there's no dice being rolled, and there's not a lot of thinking involved. You just go full map, and you penetrating, and wear out your teams, your opponent like that. So, but it's not like, it's got to be at like the bottom of the top tier of teams, because you can make a top 4, but it's going to be rare to just flat out win with it, because a skilled player playing either Jakeem or even a Krang team is going to beat that team. Okay? It's just not, once you kill the taxi, it's not mobile enough, there's not enough damage output, and if you choose invincible, now what? Right? You choose, so you say, oh, you have the Shark Resurrection or whatever on a couple of them. Okay, you're still playing downhill, and Jakeem's gonna wax that team, given enough time. Okay, so I just don't think it has enough output to consistently win. Could it pull out a tournament? Yeah, probably. But it's not going to consistently be a winner. You're playing from behind in a lot of these matchups with that team. What else was I going to say? So that's really it. I foresee a lot of shooting team iterations with WizKid, Overdrive, and some of this new stuff like the Fenris, Pirate Deadpool. Pirate Deadpool will make an impact. Some of these top tier players will show up randomly with using these figures and clean house. Do I think they're bringing Pirate Pool to the Rock Cup this year? No, not unless something comes out in Thor that really complements it. Do I think they're bringing it to Origins? No, I don't. I think at Origins you're going to see, I think you're going to see Faust. I think you're going to see Jakeem. I think you're going to see Bizarro Green Arrow. Just straight and simple like that. Some people play the Krang. That's it. Some new tech will probably be developed, but it'll be involving some of those components, because the Bizarro Green Arrow component is just so dangerous with it. It completely shuts off an aspect of the game, which is ranged combat. When I played a Shuma Garath with Bizarro Green Arrow, and the Shuma Garath also had plasticity, it was terrifying to deal with. There was almost nothing to be done against it. So, Bizarro Green Arrows, you're going to see a lot. And in the rock format, I can't picture me, because Faust is not an option, I can't picture me not playing Bizarro Green Arrow. Because instantly, things that would not be okay to play become okay because of Bizarro Green Arrow's existence. It's just 50 points of tomfoolery. And it's amazing. Deadpool's effect on the meta is, it's going to have an impact. First of all, Pirate Deadpool make an impact just because that free perplex, and he has enhancement. That is good. Alright, and with the new leadership changes, Pirate Deadpool giving keywords so that leadership works on each other, that's pretty powerful. partner that with WizKid, and it's very powerful. Okay, WizKid is powerful. It's just unfortunate that it is a B class or a C class choice, because with this rotation, Nighthawk Prime is still an option. Peggy Carter's still an option. And Jakeem Thunder's an option. I think WizKid is a better option than Peggy Carter all around. But it'd be hard to pick because Nighthawk Prime nukes WizKid. It just completely nukes it. So you play WizKid, I play Nighthawk Prime. Your whole strategy is debunked. Okay? I play Nighthawk Prime, you play Krang. It's going to be a tough game for you. It just is. So Nighthawk Prime is just so vastly good. It is insane how good he is. And Jakeem Thunder is the strongest individual piece that there is right now. So with both of those options, it's rare that WizKid is going to see the play. Somebody will do it just in spite of that, though. Somebody will build with it in spite of that, just to spite that regulation, just to show that they're that much better of a player, which there are some players that are just that much better than the general field. I would say this, though, with an uptick in competitive play with new WizKid Open seasons, I know even some of the locals at my store are thinking about playing at the next WKO. And also people are coming back around and they're getting better. I saw Aaron Cantu won a tournament. Most of the Married with Clicks team has won a tournament or placed very well. So people are getting better. So the gap, the play gap is closing somewhat within the community that exists now. Okay, I went from a top 8 last year to second place this year, and in the same exact tournament. And so there's just a growth and an improvement that's happening. But even with that being said, there are some of these guys like Patrick, I say Easton Brock, I don't know if I'd put George Massue up there. I haven't seen him do extremely well as of late. But, you know, some of these guys are just so good. They will play stuff that would not work for the average human and outplay, you know, the strongest tech that there is. Because there is that experience gap. And that's just, it is what it is. But it is beginning to close, thank God. For the Deadpool set, other than that, I don't see shifting focus making a big impact. I've played with them, I've played against them. They are not that good. They're not as good as the Superman. Just plain and simple. And the Superman's 15 more points. And the Superman buffs the whole team. The defensive Superman, invincible +1 defense to everyone adjacent. You know, that's worth it compared to the Deadpools. Again, could somebody play the Deadpools just to spite? Sure they can. Sure they can. Could somebody maybe play the Punisher van with the Deadpools? Yeah. And I think they can make something work, but as a whole, no, I just don't see it. Just don't. I don't see it with the meta where that's 75 points. Okay, it's 100 points if you put an entity on it. I would rather play Mistress Death than that. Which I will say this: Mistress Death is broken. The definition of broken. Okay, people that don't think she's broken, please reevaluate. Go read the card again and think about what the words mean. Her death token, so she makes a close combat attack. She has 12 attack. She puts a mark of death token on you, and now all damage is doubled. That is insane. Okay, so things like the Quinjet that are tanks, things like Jakeem Thunder, which are, he is an oak of a tree of a man to try and cut down. I mean, when you're playing against him and he has combat reflexes, ESD, invincible, regen, perplexing up defense, probs, sidestep. I mean, he is very hard to, put the finishing touches on and kill. Very hard, especially steal energy and he gets back up there. But with that Kiss of Death token on him, all of a sudden 5 damage turns into 10 damage and he's almost dead. Now all of a sudden what took 4 turns of momentum in your favor takes 2 turns. Come on. So 1 turn where you approach him, he's double beated, you hit him for 5, it turns into 10. Next turn he clears and you hit him again, and that's game. That's game. I mean, it's ghastly, that figure. You could play him with Jakeem Thunder, TK her out. That's a Mystic Theme team. TK her out 8 squares. She has 10 range. She has 12 attack. She could just act as a pulse waver if your opponent doesn't get close enough. While Pandora's Box is legal, you give her charge, perplex. It's nasty, Mistress Death. She is a great thing in the hands of a smart player. I foresee mystical theme. I might play this team actually. Mistress Death and Jakeem Thunder, mystical theme team. Crazy. Because the thing about her is you don't care about TKing her out there. She just gets the hit off. Because if she dies, she comes back. Yeah, your opponent scores the 100 points, but now you're trying to clear them at this point. If you're playing a Mistress Death team, most of the time you're trying to clear your opponent because you just have the damage output to do it now. You just do. If she can take a hit and hit whatever the main tentpole piece is with a BGA figure, and then you come up in close combat, finish off that figure, and then it's her and Jakeem versus Bizarro Green Arrow, and Bizarro Green Arrow is going to die. So, yeah, man, it is what it is. That is a broken piece. So, let's see how many figures are going to impact. So, there's Pirate Deadpool 1, WizKids 2, Fenris we'll see play. Fenris is actually very good. It's almost like it's a piece that was made at the wrong time. If Fenris was made at any other point in the game, it would be broken. But because Nighthawk Prime is still legal, because Jakeem Thunder exists, it's just 60 points of who cares, really. But still, somebody will break it, man. Somebody will. And this is the team that I see. I see a Taxi, Pirate Deadpool, WizKid, and Fenris. I see something like that. Because now Fenris is hitting for 6. Right? 12 attack for 6 damage. Something like that. And if you get the right matchups, you'll be able to win. But if that ever gets any play, then Nighthawk Prime will just resurrect from the grave. So that's Pirate Deadpool, WizKid, Fenris, Mistress Death, number 4. Number 5 is probably the Unicorn Deadpool. Now, Unicorn Deadpool will see play, and let me tell you why. Because it's Deadpool on a rainbow unicorn. Plain and simple. He's really a more expensive Iceman. Like he's just really a more expensive Iceman. And he's less mobile than Iceman. And it's potentially more well, Iceman's lockdown is more effective, actually. because the Deadpool rainbow marker only makes that character not able to hit Deadpool. Now, I was blessed by God Almighty and my Lord Jesus Christ, and I pulled a unicorn Deadpool from my case. If you see on my channel, it's the shortest unboxing video you've ever seen. Okay, so I did pull a unicorn Deadpool, which I was gonna get that thing one way or another. Because if there's a semi-competitive Deadpool, I'm gonna play it at some point. And it's not broken. It's not so good. It's not as good as Jakeem. I think it's a more expensive Iceman. It is cool that his defense trait mixed with Bizarro Green Arrow now makes it a little more interesting, and it makes it so that possibly he can be a better choice than Iceman. Because here's a scenario: you play Unicorn Deadpool, you play BGA. Okay, his defense power is not a can't be ignored defense power. Which, if you don't know his defense power, he has Impervious, and once per game he can choose to take no damage from an attack or whatever it is. So, since you have BGA, it protects from the Pulse Wave, because the Pulse Wave will automatically be transferred to BGA. All right. So he's protected from that. He's protected from the Alpha Strike Hyper because he can choose to not take any damage. And he's protected from any other long range attack. So there's some protection there to where you have to either come up and just get out of the way. Because if you put Lust on him and he has plasticity, you have to charge. You have to charge up there to hit him. Or you have to hit with the tank and separate him in BGA, which in any case you would still kind of be using one of your top hitters to get the tank off, and you'd essentially be in the same scenario, because the scenario is whatever way you slice it, you get up there and there is a turn where you did not do any damage basically, and Deadpool gets a swing at you. Now, if Deadpool gets that swing off and is able to put that rainbow marker on you, it's going to be hard to come back and win. Okay? Because he has penetrating damage. So say he did 5 damage to you. Let's just count it low. You only got 1 perplex. Hopefully you're playing some perplex with him, because he's a lot of your team. That's 190. 215 if you put an Ent on him and put BGA. So that's almost your entire team dedicated to Unicorn Deadpool, which the sculpt is so amazing. He is worth it. He's worth it. He has the Mystics team ability also, which helps, but he's only 6 clicks deep. So you do that and you kind of don't attack what's strong, and then you go and attack what's weak, and you try to win, but it's inconsistent. It's hard to deal with Invincible with Deadpool. Yes, you could put Red Sun Brainiac on him, but you're not going to be able to outwit Jakeem's Invincible, and you're not going to be able to get around some of these Power Cosmic pieces that have Invincible. But it's good. Now, for most options, I think Iceman is a more effective option, because Iceman has flight, so you can carry BGA. Iceman at 110, even after you put the Ent on him, is 135. You still are cheaper than Deadpool just naked. Okay, because Deadpool with the Ent is 165, whereas Iceman has more clicks. He has 7 or 8 clicks. And I believe it's 7 clicks. He has 7 clicks, so 1 more click. He has flight. He can attack every turn, and his lockdown is more final. Okay? Because if you roll a 5 or 6 with the rainbow marker, you're out of the lockdown. But Iceman's lockdown, you can't, end of turn, you could get it off and sidestep away, but that's all you can do. because you can't outwit a sidestep on Iceman because it's coming from the box. So Iceman is very viable, and I think if you see Deadpool have any results, then you'll see a resurgence of Iceman. I played Iceman at this WKO, and just it turned out that I rolled yellow 2 times in a row and basically nuked the team before it could get up close to me. It was still a hard game. I killed. It was just a Harley Quinn and Iceman, and it still gave me a run for my money with my Jakeem team. But you will see some play. I bet it will top 8, maybe even win a tournament. Yeah. So all around this Deadpool set, not having as big an impact as Joker's Wild. Joker's Wild was an amazing set. It gave us Jakeem Thunder and BGA. And when you look at it, and it gave us the Penguin, which is very good piece. Very, very good piece. But all around, from Joker's Wild, there was 2 must-have pieces. And every team, for the most part, has one or the other of those 2 pieces. Sometimes both. Sometimes you play Jakeem and Bizarro Green Arrow. Okay? So, very, very powerful team. Set. Much more powerful than this Deadpool set. I don't really care about any of the super rares besides Mistress Death. Howard the Duck was disappointing. Yeah. Superior Foes of Spider-Man. One of the most... Yes, we got Overdrive, which is a mainstay and will be a mainstay. There's Overdrive and Betty Bryant, which Betty Bryant is just amazing. 15-point perplex. And -1 to opposing characters with the flight symbol. But that was really it from Superior Foes of Spider-Man that made a long-lasting stand. Spider-Man Noir made some noise, but it didn't last forever. Frogman, of course. So this Deadpool set all around was not that good of a set. It's like a set that came out at the wrong time. Pulp Pool is a fun piece. I think it's just missing something to be competitive. If he were 80 points, he'd be so viable. But at 100 points with all these other options, it's very hard to see me playing Pulp Pool instead of Frogman and Mitzi. It's hard for me to play Pulp Pool instead of Fast Forces Jean Grey and Bizarro Green Arrow. It's hard for me to play Pulp Pool if it's a WizKids Open instead of Faust. So with that type of stuff available, it's just hard to see him being on a team. The only thing that makes Pirate Deadpool an option is in light of leadership changing. Him giving everyone the pirate keyword's very good, and the free perplex that comes from the little parrot is very good. But that is really it. WizKid is after next year, like after Nighthawk Prime rotates, he will be very good. Then WizKid will be very good. But for right now, it's just the wrong place and the wrong time. So that's how I see the meta. If you're playing the meta, you need to have a BGA. You need to have a Jakeem. I suggest you have a Nighthawk Prime. And that's what you need. You're going to play a variation of those things. Pim Tank, must have. It's a must have because on almost any team, the ability to have for 8 points everything that can do, it's just too good not to have. Because it all of a sudden takes your 6 damage and makes it 8 damage. It all of a sudden takes your 4 damage and makes it 6 damage, just enough to kill the support. Yeah, you give up 15 points essentially. I mean 50 points essentially, because they do score the 50 points of the big tank when it comes in, but it's worth it if you play it right. I lost the game because of the tank, which I would not have lost otherwise. So that's how I see it. Wanted to give you my 2 cents. Remember, when you're playing Heroclix, you need to play to win.